Well, hello everyone. So, you must be wondering what in the world's going on here, right? Well, as it turns out, the modding community for this game is very talented, and they've managed to backport almost everything they added in the world for the first and second semester of the game to the vanilla game. This includes everything in Kochiji, the new Confidants, and all the added events from Royal. I was curious about this, and many other mods that add new things or change other stuff in the game, so I decided to give myself a challenge. I will be attempting to play and finish the whole game before Royal releases on PC. So here's my experience playing Persona 5 EX plus the Royal project, alongside a handful of other mods. Enjoy! As a disclaimer, this won't be an accurate retelling of the story. If you still have never played the game, after this many years, I highly recommend you to do it first, and then come back to this video, especially now that the game is out on the very platform. I've also played this game many times before. Because of this, I set myself a couple of rules to make it more interesting. I will be playing in hard mode as this is the most difficult way to play the game. Merciless makes the game way easier because of the triple damage. DLC personas are forbidden because they are broken and make the game way too trivial. I will also attempt to max out every confidant if it's possible. I will attempt my best to do so. Because of a bug with P5X, I will also be only recruiting personas that are begging to me. However, I'm allowed to fuse persona if I need to. I'll do my best to write my thoughts on what I see and what I expect as I go along with this run. With that out of the way, let's steal some hearts, shall we? Nothing all that interesting happens during the tutorial of the game. If you didn't know, a basic attack is always guaranteed to crit here. You can then use Bird Blade to quickly dispose of the shadow. It doesn't take very long for me to get noticed by a random girl in the casino while trying to find my way back. This might be because of the fact that I'm not wearing any clothes other than a towel on me. But anyway, the girl in question ends up reporting me to the cops and I get apprehended for accidentally showing myself to everyone inside the casino, which apparently accounts for way too many charges.
Obstruction of justice, blackmail, defamation, possession of weapons. Manslaughter too, yeah? Talk about the works.
I'm then forced into signing a contract so they keep quiet about this whole incident in exchange for my soul. The police then asks me to tell them my own version of the events, which I start from the very beginning. It was quite calm for the first couple days arriving in the city. I got to know my new caretaker, Sojiro. I enrolled to Shuji Academy. Everything was going well. At least until my first day of school, where I got lost on my way to said school, following some random dude I asked for directions, and we somehow end up inside a giant castle. As it turns out, they don't really like our presence here, and they send us to the dungeon to be executed. Fortunately, at this moment, I awaken to Arsene, and I make my escape. Or I try, but my escapades are quickly interrupted by a weird simping cat-looking creature.
I am not a cat. Say that again and I'll make you regret it.
As we should do with all Sims, I try to ignore him, but he's just so persistent that he ends up following me by force. We're then caught trying to escape, and Ryuji awakens to his persona. This fight is really not that hard, to be honest. Just focus the bicorns and you should be fine. Because of what we saw inside the castle, which apparently is a representation of his desires, we think that Kamoshida is abusing the students. And our suspicions are pretty much confirmed when this happens. Personally, this is the scene that first really hooked me into the game. As bad as some acts of the story are, the first one is really not one of them. After witnessing this, we go back to the palace to steal Kamoshida's heart. The Castle of Lost is pretty much a tutorial introduction for the game to come, as such I won't have really too much to mention about it. We end up bringing Kamoshida's girlfriend with us for some reasons, and she ends up being kidnapped, awakening her persona when we come to save her. Anne's awakening fight isn't all that interesting, just guard the first round with Ryuji and abuse weakness with Anne, and we are then forced out of the palace for the day.
To think there would be a woman who could stand up to King Kamoshida.
Outside of school, that guy's nothing but a pathetic loser.
I then go through the rest of the tutorial until 418. After this, we infiltrate the palace once again. I get the free incubus during the beginning tutorial, and other than this, I infiltrate the palace pretty normally, ambushing shadows and asking for money, or aloud attacking them depending on the situation. This goes on until I reach the gym, at which point the first mini-boss of the palace makes his appearance, Archangel. Archangel isn't too hard as a mini-boss. He can be annoying, but he basically serves as a tutorial to teach you how to guard. Archangel seems to mainly focus Skull out of all the phantoms, so I take a turn healing Skull with Mona and Panther, attacking with Joker and Skull, then I attack with everyone on the turn after, rinse and repeat. At least that's what I would normally say, but he decided to change target and one-shot both Mona and Panther at some point. It doesn't matter much, however, because at this point only 2 more hits were needed to finish him off. I end up noticing a couple new models on the way to the next mini-boss, mainly Silky and Andras, but then my path is blocked by swinging axes and I need to find the keys to stop them. The Allegor that guards the first key wasn't too hard. Being weak to electric, I can abuse his weakness with both Joker and Skull. After only a couple Zeo, he even gets shocked, and we finish him off easily. As for the one that holds the second key, I instead opted to sleep him with Dormina that Panther learned in the fight prior, and he ends up being defeated fairly quickly also. While finishing off the palace, I end up backtracking to get a bicorn and another incubus, which I fuse into a Silky with Tarinda for Kamoshida, and then press on to the next mini-boss, Mara, the Thorn King of Desire. I was expecting a harsh fight from this one, considering I can't use weaknesses, starting with Raccoon down Joker to lower his defense and attacking him with everyone else. Dream Needle ended up sleeping on round 2, then Ryuji crit him, which I banned passed to Joker for huge damage. He then got slapped again and died from a technical. The day after, I send the calling card, fuse an Abarian, which resets physical, and fight the king of Lust himself, Suguru Asmodeus Kamoshida. My strategy for the boss fight is pretty straightforward. I debuff with Joker's attack and defense, I heal with Panther and Mona when needed, else I just attack. Phase 1 goes by fairly quickly and he then full heal himself starting phase 2. During this phase, you basically have to kill the cop that Kamoshida is in front of him, while he occasionally uses a little bit of boost now and then, which raises his attack. It's not all that much of an issue since I can lower his attack back with Joker, and we destroy the cup without too much trouble with start phase 3. Starting from now on Joker's turn after the all-out attack, we are given the option to remove Kamoshida's crown, which I send Mona for. Starting the turn you choose to seal the crown in, Kamoshida will use his kill shot, which does a decent bit of almighty damage, enough to one-shot the entire party, so I'm forced to guard. I then heal the party with a healing item from the Takemi's clinic, and I focus on debuffing with Joker, attacking with Skull and healing with Panther when I need to. I actually end up doing a mistake and one-shot Panther. I however managed to do enough damage to trigger Mona stealing the crown on the same turn, at which point Kamoshida cannot deal any real damage to anyone anymore, so I revive Anne so that she doesn't lose on the XP of the fight and I finish Kamoshida off. Following our victory, we decided to go to the Wilton Buffet in Shibuya, in which we choose our team name, which I obviously named after the superior birds of this world. While we're going to the bathroom for a bit, we encounter some weird bald dude that gave me flashback of the blacksmith from SAO, but I'm too ashamed to admit to Ryuji I've seen that show, so I act like nothing happened. A couple days after we celebrated our first victory, the weird cat that's still stalking me showed us a place called Mementos, which is apparently the hub of the entire human unconscious or something, which we traveled by him turning himself into an entire goddamn van. Einstein can go screw himself, I guess. During our visit of this place, we end up noticing a hitchhiker and decide to bring him along for the ride. Sadly, it turns out he just wanted to kill us, so we decide to kick his ass together. After all, it shouldn't be all too difficult. He's once against Oh. Alright. Let's try that again. So, Nakanohara. He isn't really too hard. He starts with Tarukaja, and if you use Tarunda, he'll always follow up with another Tarukaja. He'll always do this follow up unless his attack is already up, at which point he does Rampage and one-shots your entire team. Despite the fact that he isn't doing much, I still decide to sleep him so that the fight goes a bit quicker, but he really isn't an issue at all. He then blames a guy called Madarame for all his misery apparently, but I don't pay too much attention and continue on my way. We then get out of Mementos and continue on with our lives. We end up being introduced to Maruki, the school counselor, and decide to torture the word cat that's stalking me a bit before finding out that this Malarme guy apparently has a palace. During our investigation of this palace, as I saw the true beauty that is framed into a wall, I ripped open my shirt out of pure ecstasy. I finally found it. My true love, Yusuke. The next day, we decide to visit him at his house, but I end up staring at him awkwardly for hours on end without saying anything, which kinda creeped him out, and he reported me to the cops to file for a restraining order. We now have to change Malarme's heart to change his mind. The start of the palace isn't too interesting, up until the first block, where the word cat stalking me suddenly freaks out while walking in front of a vase made out of gold. Turns out that the vase in question is alive, and we decide to go full on Ghostbusters mode on him. Following this, we find a giant peacock-looking door that must be open in the well world before being able to proceed. We decide to do it on the next day, as we send a stalker cat to pick lock a door. But on second thought, this might not have been the brightest idea ever, so we send Anne back in to try to get him back. But they end up being caught and escape through the metaverse. On the way to escape, we end up being caught by Shadow Madarame, and Yusuke awakens to his true self deep within. Santa Claus! Yusuke's awakening fight was actually way closer than I expected. I start the fight with a battle pass to Joker to make quick work of the small enemies, and I then debuff the boss while trying to down him, but come a bit short on the first try. On the second go through, however, it goes way better and I end up downing him with only Joker remaining. Personally, Fox's awakening is probably my favorite awakening in P5. Which one is yours and why? You can comment down below, I'm curious to see all your guys' answers to that. As we come back to the palace a couple days after this incident, we decide to Mario 64 our way to the ruler of the palace. While inside the painting, we have to find which one is the real painting, but since we have Yusuke on our team, this is pretty easy, and we find the treasure, sending the calling card the day after to fight Ichiryu Azael Madarame. The first phase of the boss is pretty easy to understand, but kinda tricky. It has 4 parts, each with different L bars: the right eye who does elemental magic, the left eye who buffs, the nose who does AoE, and the mouth which does physical damage. I decided that the right eye is the biggest threat, followed by the left, the nose, and then the mouth. It actually takes me a couple of attempts to realize I'm too low level to do it in a reasonable amount of time, so I actually go back and level to level 17 and 18, since Cole learns Rampage and Fox learns Vicious Strike, which are 2 really good physical AoE moves. It makes the fight way easier triggering phase 2 after only 2 attempts. During phase 2, Madarame is out and barely does any real damage. This is basically the boss true health bar, and this is the moment to strike. After a couple turns go by, he goes back to his painting form, and the cycle repeats. Only this time we can cover him in paint, making him weak to all elements, including physical and gun damage. And with this, Madarame goes out. While on the search for a third target, the student council president ends up being suspicious of us, and ends up catching us red-handed. And she ends up asking us to steal the art of a mafia boss to prove our worth. So now we have to find his palace, which ends up being the entirety of Shibuya. For some reason, we also decide to bring her along with us, and not too long after entering the palace, she also awakens to her persona. The 2 fights prior are a complete joke, having Shiki-Uji available to us at this point who knows physical damage, and the boss itself isn't that different, but it's a bit harder.
Let's go. Go down.
Now!
We then make her escape and prepare for the real infiltration. Kenishiro's palace is really cool, but also very short, so sadly I won't really have much to talk about on this one. At this point I also had to remove the random costumes to be able to complete this in a reasonable amount of time. The random costumes are really fun, but they also make the game very unstable, so I will not make any more mention of it for this video. The first interesting fights happen pretty much halfway into the palace, being a Fuki, a Kinki, and a Suiki. It takes me a couple tries to get it, but after coming up with a semi-decent strategy, the fight goes by without many issues. The idea being to basically taunt them with Shiki-Uji out, and with this they go out pretty quickly. We can then go down into the vault in which we need to find codes and decrypt them to advance, but having played this game way too many times before, I already know them and breeze through it until the next mini-boss fairly quickly. Just like the first mini-boss, however, they rely mainly on physical damage, being 2 Onis, and a Take Minakata, who does electric damage and is weak to Psi. Because of this, I end up getting it on the first try despite my team being completely dead other than Joker. After the fight, we reach the heart of the vault where the treasure resides and send a calling card to fight Junya Bahel Kaneshiro, the gluttonous Mafia boss, which I removed Fox of my team for to change for Skull. Phase 1 of the boss is very easy. Kaneshiro earns for barely any damage and it goes by pretty quickly. Phase 2, however, is quite harder. Kaneshiro is now inside Pigatron, who does big AoE damage, fire damage, which is the reason I didn't bring Yusuke, and physical damage. Basically, keep debuffing him, keep your team healthy enough to live an attack, and it should go fine. After his first Piggy March, the game will ask you if you want to attack Kaneshiro to make him fall, and then you can send an item to bring him down at this point, and as long as you're willing to send the items, he cannot attack you anymore, and he goes down fairly easily after this. After beating Kaneshiro, I spent a bit of time maxing out the Chariot Confidant, working on the other ones, and fight some requests inside Mementos. Mainly a teacher made to suffer, so I can unlock the Temperance max rank quickly. While I was doing my things, however, I received a weird DM by a person who calls herself Alibaba, asking to change the heart of a person called Futaba Sakura, or she will reveal her identities, so we go searching for the person in question, but barely find anything. Our only lead is her name, which is the same as my caretaker, Sojiro Sakura, so we decide to visit him and learn that Futaba is actually his daughter. During our investigation, we also learned that Futaba has a palace, so we decide to steal her heart as per her request. Futaba's palace is also fairly short compared to some other ones. She first asks us to go grab the map she got stolen, which we do by fighting in Garuda, who I ended up shocking by chance and killed by abusing technicals. I also ended up realizing that I accidentally made a persona immune to him, as he only attacks with wind attacks. I swore that was not on purpose, but anyways, after this we go back inside the pyramid and start infiltrating the palace for real. The palace itself is separated into 4 sections. The first one is basically finding our way out back to the surface, however there's no real fights in this section, it's mostly pretty easy shadow, so I will be skipping it. Starting from the second section on, we have to unlock the stairs to go higher and higher into the pyramid, starting by fighting a moth. I had a lot of trouble with this fight, and ended up wasting a lot of time trying to beat him without success because his Megiddo would one-shot my entire team. I ended up beating him by pure luck, having him barely ever use this attack, and then I realized it would have been way easier with Mona on my team because he's weak to wind. But hey, what's done's done, can't really do anything about it now. There's then a lot of puzzles to do, and no real interesting fights other than Anubis, who I basically perma-CC'd whenever I could because he uses insta-kill moves, and pretty strong AoE curse and bless moves. This goes on until the second mini-boss of the palace, who is another moth. I'm a bit stronger than last time however, and even without Mona, because I forgot him again, this one goes by fairly quickly too. I then fuse a persona that's immune to wind and buy back Shikioji, since the only attack the boss can do are wind and physical moves, and I then send a calling card to fight the incarnation of Wrath, Wakaba Ishiki. The phase 1 of the boss is basically a survival until she does her dive attack, at which point the fight ends and there's a cutscene playing where Futaba awakens to her persona. After this, the real fight starts. Futaba summons a ballista out of thin air. I'm seriously starting to think that Einstein doesn't exist in this world, and we can send someone there to take Wakaba down. Before we do it, she cannot be hit by any physical attacks being high up in the air. With Joker being immune to her attacks and Wakaba not doing enough damage to kill, we end up reaching her Sphinx dive pretty quickly and she absolutely obliterates herself because Fox countered her attack, instantly proccing the hold up cutscene to end the fight. I was honestly very confused about what happened. I first thought the game glitched out, until I reviewed the footage and realized what actually happened.
Let's bring that. You like me once more?
You want me to fire it? I can shoot it down. You want me to fire it, right? I can shoot it down. Even to make the ballista!
Never mind. Let's go.
After doing this, I maxed out the Dead Confident, do a couple events with Fruitiba to make her overcome her fear of the crowd, and this goes on until the 31st of August, which is the last day of the first semester of the game. Persona 5 being an insanely long game, I chose to split this video into 2 parts, one for each semester in the vanilla game, which should be out next week, hopefully, or in 2 weeks if I'm not able to do it in time. For now, I'll go rest and hopefully see you all beautiful penguins next time. Bye bye!